how did you meet Miriam and Billy?
Well, I was very young. I was 14 years old, and I found a copy of Kicks magazine number 3.
Oh, wow.
And for me, it was like the greatest discovery of all time. I couldn't believe it. It was just page after page after page talking about music and records and, White Castle hamburgers and wrestling and baseball and pizza and all this kind of stuff. And for me, it was like, wow, I, I love this so much.
You like a White Castle?
Yeah. So I wrote a letter to Billy and Miriam, and they wrote me back and said, hey, you're 14 years old, you're really into rock and roll, good for you. And so then I stayed in touch with them, and if I found a cool record, I would call Billy up and say, hey, I found this rare rockabilly record, and he would say, cool, man. And I was living in Missouri. Nobody else was into cool stuff around me.
Oh,
I was the only one, and I was kind of out in the country. So to have Billy and Miriam and Kicks magazine was really, really helpful for me. It was great. And so I think I was 16. My mom was going to New York City on a business trip,
Oh,
and she wanted to take me
wow.
and let me see New York City. And so I said, ooh, New York City, I really want to meet Billy and Miriam.
Yeah, it's a good chance, isn't it?
Yeah. So I wrote Billy and Miriam, and I said, can I stay with you? And yeah.
Wow.
And I remember I met Miriam in Manhattan at the Strand bookstore where she worked, and she took me from Manhattan to Brooklyn.
Wow.
And that was when I walked in the original Kicks magazine headquarters. It was so cool. It was like the coolest place I'd ever seen in my whole life. There was just records and stuff from the 50s and 60s and memorabilia and pictures and everything everywhere. It was like on all the walls and the ceiling, and I was just like, wow. And so I spent the night there, and
You are lucky, isn't it?
yeah. And I remember this would have been probably 1985, 1986. I remember that Billy was getting these rare recordings from Hassel Adkins.
Wow.
And he was saying, I want to start a record company so that I can put out this Hassel Adkins record. And so shortly after my visit with them, they started Norton Records and put out the first record, of course, was the Hassel Adkins, Out to Hunch. And it was like, wow, this is so cool. And then they had, the A-Bones and the Rockin' R's and Frank, Andy Starr, or not Andy Starr, I'm blanking out on his name now, Jack Starr. And then I said, hey, I have this new band called the Untamed Youth. And so, I sent them a cassette tape, and they said, hey, this is really cool, and they helped me set up some shows in New York City and New Jersey.
How old?
At this point, I would have been 17 or 18 years old. And so my dad drove us to New York City from Missouri.
Drove?
Like 1,000 miles.
Wow, how long take?
It's about 24 hours, something like that.
Crazy.
And we played, I think, 3 shows in New York. And after the first show, Billy said, hey, I want to sign the Untamed Youth to Norton Records. And so I think we were the first new band to ever be signed to Norton Records, other than the A-Bones.
Yeah.
And we wound up having 3 or 4 records with Norton Records, and of course have stayed friends with Billy and Miriam all these years. But that's how I met them. I was very, very young, very, very
Yeah.
impressionable,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
Kicks magazine and Norton Records really it shaped my mind
Yeah.
the way I think.
It means Kicks magazine made to change your life, isn't
Yeah,
it?
definitely.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.